In this video, we're going to continue our discussion of animation, and in particular, we're going to talk about callback functions and practice some responsive animations. So let's take a look at our next sample page. So you can see what this one does. It's kind of like a little video with our hippo. Let me show you one more time how this works. So we have the tunnel fades in, then the hippo comes, walks, and then kind of drops. So it's doing those several things. And if we look at the HTML, the HTML coding is super simple. We just have a div that is the animation area, which is the box, bordered box here. Then we have a div that's called animate1, and it contains the tunnel. And then that contains another div that is animate2, and inside of that is our hippo. And the hippo is just generated by Font Awesome. So that's just a Font Awesome icon that's the hippo. So that's super easy. So very, very simple HTML. And then let's take a look at our code. Here is the function that is generating this particular behavior, the behavior of the tunnel and the walking hippo. So it also is demonstrating for us the idea of the callback function. Okay, so we know this animate method, right? And we know that we can use it to affect different CSS properties. In this case, you see we're setting the opacity to 1.0. And if we look at our CSS, I've actually got the opacity set to 0 for our tunnel. This is the tunnel. And then for the second, this is the coding that affects the hippo, right? Now notice again, because the hippo walks, we have this set to position absolute to make sure that it's actually going to move when we perform the animate function on it. It's setting the opacity to 100% or 1.0. It's using a speed of slow, and then it's actually this time sending a third parameter to the animate method. And that third parameter is an entire function in and of itself right here. So this kind of function that's actually sent as a parameter in a method is called a callback function. So what that means is it's not going to perform, these actions won't be performed until the other things in the method are finished, right? So the method will do what it's doing, then it will perform this function. That's the difference in a callback function. So I could take this exact same code. So I could take this function and I could remove it from being inside the call to here, and I could put it, just down here somewhere else, and it would still work, but it would change the behavior. So it would start doing this next step, possibly even before it had finished this part of the step, right? And so it wouldn't have this nice effect, this almost like video effect of doing one thing and then another thing and then another thing. It would just sort of do all these things a little bit simultaneously, which we don't want. So callbacks are really important for creating a sequence of events. So that's that kind of video effect. Our callback functions allow us to do that. And notice I've got a couple of them nested here. So this one is nested, and then it's got another callback function nested even inside of that. So this is the part that makes the hippo appear. This is the part that causes the hippo to move outside of the cave, to walk straight outside the cave. And then this is the part that causes the hippo to move down, right? And notice how that's using the plus equal that we talked about last time to add that 100 pixels down on the position of the hippo. So like I said, it creates that sort of video effect because it does each of those things sequentially, because it is coded as a series of callback functions, a series of nested functions, and we call those callback functions. The hippo actually does something else. There's some additional functionality on this page. So notice right now I'm clicking the right arrow key, and now I'm clicking the down arrow key, up arrow key, left arrow key. So I can actually walk this hippo all around on the page. So this is the part where we talked about responsive animation, right? And what I mean by that basically is this, that you can respond to user input and alter what it's doing. This is also an example of that more old-fashioned kind of animation, I guess, where it's sort of just drawing, erasing, redrawing. So it's not got that kind of video quality like the animations with the animate method have, but it is still creating that effect of motion, right? Just like a flip book, this is giving you the illusion of motion, and that can be good enough for animation for user purposes. Now, I still have this overflow, so the hippo will disappear if we walk him off the page. It's not got a set boundary. And again, we'll talk later how to create something that will actually adhere to boundaries. We'll talk about that in a bit. But the hippo, and when I hold down the key, if you notice, if I hold down the key, it just keeps walking. Okay. And that's kind of neat. So this should, I'm hoping, give you some ideas about different sorts of things that you could make with this kind of functionality. There's a lot of possibility. Now, how did I do this? Well, as you recall, I actually showed this functionality on that demonstration page when we were talking about events back in module 3, and we pressed the A key and it caused the text to change and have a new background, all that good stuff. Well, similar thing here. We're using on and key down, and then we're creating a function that is called when a key is pressed down. In this case, we're going to use a switch because we want to have 4 different keys that we're looking for, okay? And switch is actually going to be the most efficient way to do this rather than lots and lots of if statements. So case 37, I want to say that is left arrow key, 39 is right arrow key. Yeah, 39 is right arrow key, 38 is the up key, and 40 is the down key. So that's just good to know. And remember, I showed you this resource, which is some sample code on the jQuery API where you can actually type in different keys and it will show you. So right now I'm typing the right key and it's giving me 39, left 37, down 40, up 38, enter 13. Okay, so you can use this to find the value of any key on the keyboard. And honestly, that's what I use to find these values. And then now that I've got that coded in, I'm going to remember those because they're very useful to know those arrow keys. That's how we can make the hippo walk all over the page, is using this. And of course, you could do other behaviors. You can make the hippo actually, flip over, just change the class on the hippo to make him flip over to walk. So he's walking forward instead of backwards when he goes left. I mean, you could put any bunch of code in here to do other things. Just a little note here about how this works, right? So left and down are very easy. You're just adding on to those in the way that you would expect, right? You're taking the property left and you're going plus equal, and you're taking the property top and you're adding to it, and that makes it go down. Because of the way web pages work, right? We read left to right, content gets loaded on the left, and then changing that value is going to push it towards the right. We read, top to bottom, so same deal. It's easy to get things to go down. That's the sort of natural way that we're expecting them to go. Easy to get things to go right. When you're talking about going left or going up, we have to be a little bit counterintuitive. I'm not setting right and adding to that. Okay, that's not what I'm doing, because that's not necessarily going to push it. I mean, we could do that, but we'd have to figure out the offset. We'd have to do some other fancy stuff. But what I can do is, again, use the left property and make it smaller. So in order to move something right, I actually need to modify the left property. In order to make something go up, I actually have to modify the top property. So those things are a little bit counterintuitive, but it's still super simple to make things go in those directions. You just have to think through the logic of it a little bit. So, I've done it here so you have a model if you did want to use this functionality that could make it very easy. So this is just one example of a responsive animation, but hopefully it gives you some ideas. You can also use things like, and go back to the events module, mouse clicks, different form elements to accept user data in and to do responsive things. And you can take advantage of all of the conditional logic structures that in coding to make things responsive in that way as well. So based on the result of some sort of calculation, it could do this or do that, right? So all of those things, you want to kind of combine that in order to create responsive animations. So I hope that's going to start giving you some ideas. of things that you can do to create your own animated program. And then for your demonstration, you want to show some of that responsive behavior based on some kind of algorithmic calculation or based on user input.